Hey YouTube, what is going on? Welcome back to the channel. We got a sad day. The truck is down. If you saw the last video, at the end of the last video, we were out ripping it and something came apart. We took a little drive on camera and then I was over at my brother Cameron's house and I brought a couple people for a ride. Ran great, ran perfect. Came back to Cameron's, parked it, didn't notice anything weird, it ran just fine. Then I went to start it to leave, to come home, and it was idling a little weird, a little rough, and I didn't really think anything of it. And then I noticed underneath it was leaking some oil, so I kind of dug into it a little more, and it is just puking oil out of the crankcase vent, out of the valve cover, and now it's barely running. So trailered it home, we got it in the shop. I really don't know what's going on. I assume it's something in the bottom end because I think I'm getting compression into the crankcase and that's why it's pushing out oil out of the valve cover. So first thing I'm gonna do, I'm gonna pull the glow plugs out, just do a visual check, see if I don't have one soaked with oil. That would be a dead giveaway. And then I'll probably do a compression test just to see if the compression is okay. It sounds weird cranking over even, so I have a feeling we have a dead cylinder. I kind of figured this would happen. This motor has 240, 250, 250,000 miles on it, and I didn't touch the bottom end. All I did was head studs, so I figured it would blow up. I didn't think it would be this fast. I seriously have 50, 80 miles on this thing since I've built it. But putting the big turbo on it, I'm pushing like 28 pounds of boost. So that being said, I kind of figured at some point it would blow up, but I didn't think it'd be this fast. Anyway, let's get in the truck, get in the motor, we'll pull the glow plugs, check those, and then we'll do a compression test and see what that gives us. Well, we got the glow plugs out. Surprisingly, they actually look pretty decent. I was expecting one to be completely coated in oil, and there really isn't much oil on any of them. So, I mean, still not a good, maybe it's a better sign, but we got to do a compression test, and that'll give us some get us an idea of what's going on. If the compression's good, I really don't know what else would be pushing, basically pressurizing the crankcase enough to blow lots and lots of oil. This is my crankcase vent here for now. I just had it tied down, just open to the atmosphere, and it was puking oil out. It completely coated my rear axle, everything under the truck. It was spraying lots of oil. So there's clearly some sort of compression getting into the crankcase and blowing it right out the top. And obviously you can hear it's not running too great, so I'm assuming it's compression. So let's get the compression tester on. What I'm using for a compression tester is actually the old cheapo from Harbor Freight, and I've used it a few times in the past on these TDIs, and it actually works pretty good. So you got the tester here, and then I believe it was this. Yeah, it looks like the right one. This adapter here, so you thread that in to the glow plug hole, get that tight and seated against the head. Then you hook that up, give her a crank, make sure you disable the injection pump, and if you have a lift pump as well, pull the relay for that. All right guys, compression test is done. We got bad news. Number 4 is at 100 PSI. Number 3 is at 200. Number 2 is at 300. And number 1 is at 350, which is kind of weird that all 4 cylinders would be low. Usually it's if you get a catastrophic piston failure, it's one hole. not all four. You know, something like this motor should be at like 400, 450 plus. You know, 500 is like a new motor, but even, you need even numbers for it to run properly. So obviously this motor is coming out. We got to pull the head. I am assuming it's bottom end. I don't know what would cause anything in the head. I don't know if anything in the head could cause compression to leak back into the crankcase or valve cover. I mean, I guess a valve stem seal could, but when the valve is closed, obviously you wouldn't be losing compression. So I don't know. Either way, this motor needs some love. So we are going to start ripping this bad boy out. What I'm going to do is I'm going to pull the whole front end off, get the grill, bumper, pull the hood off, just so I have room to work, and then we can start pulling this thing out. And honestly, this thing is going to be pretty easy to pull with everything that's been deleted when I swapped it. I mean, realistically, I got exhaust, intercooler piping. There's seriously maybe five connectors on the motor for, you know, electrical connections, and then radiator, cooling system, and, you know, other little things like power steering. But all in all, this thing is very, very simplified. So I'm not too worried about pulling it out. Should come out pretty quick and easy. There we go, boys. Motor's out. Didn't actually take too long. It's almost 7 o'clock. I think I started at like 2 or 2:30. So really not that bad. Pretty easy to pull this thing out. So now I got to get that engine off that stand and throw this one on that stand, and then we can start pulling intake manifold, turbo, pull the head off, and see what is going on with this thing. All right, guys, got the motor on the stand. So now I'm just gonna pull off the intake, exhaust, turbo, and I'm gonna pop this head off. So I gotta pull the timing belt and then injector lines. I'm just going to leave the injectors in the head for now. I just put those in, so they're not going to be hard at all to pull out with the head off. So injection pump can stay for now. A lot of this other stuff I'm just going to keep on it. I just want to pull the head and see what is going on. Open it up and just get a visual. See if I got pistons that are melted, or maybe a head gasket blew, or who knows. So let's pull this head off and see what we got. All right, guys, a little tip for you. So if you're not familiar with Volkswagens, a lot of them have the timing marks on the flywheel, and you get your top dead center from the flywheel mark onto the transmission. And obviously we have no transmission or OEM flywheel, so timing is a little bit different on this. On these, actually, they have a mark right there on the harmonic balancer and then on the timing cover. So that is your mark for top dead center. Then you got to make sure your intake or your number one cam lobes are pointed up like that, not compressing the valve at all. And then look at the back of your camshaft, and you can see the slot is horizontal. That means that you are at top dead center. So now we can pop this timing belt off and rip that head off. All right, we also got to pull the camshaft because the cam sticks out in front of the timing cover. So we'll just pop the caps off, pop the cam out, then we can pull the injector lines off, and then that head will come right off. All right, one important thing to note, if you guys noticed, when I pulled these caps off, I set them up in the right orientation that they came off. I put them right back on and put the nuts on. These have to stay exactly where they came from and in the same orientation. You don't want to flip one over that way. So make sure you know before you pull those off, they got to go in the exact spot where they came from. All right, boys, heads off. And honestly, it doesn't even look that bad. Number 3 and 4 were the two cylinders with the lowest compression. This was at 100. Number 3 was at 200. And both of them have quite a bit of fuel just chilling in the bowl of the piston. So I'm just attributing that to obviously not having enough compression to burn it. But as far as compression goes, I guess I'll have to pull the pistons out and look, but the bores don't look that bad. The pistons look fine. They're not cracked or melted, but they're definitely a lot more, 3 and 4 are a lot wetter than 1 and 2, which this was 300, number 1 was 350, which is still low, but runnable, I guess, or enough to run. So you could tell it was burning, and number 3 and 4 weren't really burning. So I guess we'll have to pull these pistons out and figure out what is causing the loss of compression. All the valves and everything in the head look good, so I don't think it's anything top end. And even if it was, I don't think valves would blow oil out of your crankcase vent. It's got to be compression. All the blow by, there's so much blow by past the rings. It's leaking compression into the crankcase, which is blowing all the oil out the easiest way to go, which is the crankcase vent in the valve cover. So I guess we'll have to dig a little deeper and see what is going on. Well, we got the pan off, and I popped out number 4 piston and rod, and, well, found the problem. As soon as I popped piston out, the ring fell out in 2 pieces. So I would say that's probably the issue. So now that we know we need a complete rebuild anyway, I was going to do it regardless, but I really just wanted to figure out what was causing the issues. So I'm going to flip this motor back over, pull the injection pump, pull all that whole accessory bracket, everything off, pull the timing covers, and then we can fully disassemble the block and rods and crank and everything, get this thing completely stripped, and figure out what we're doing from here. Make sure the crank is good. Those bearings actually look really good on the rod, but we'll see what the mains look like. I'm sure the crank is fine. I'm sure the block is fine. Actually the bore looked really good, but we will see once we get it completely apart. So let's get to work. Alright guys, I am working on getting this crank pulley pulled off. So I've made up a little tool here, just a piece of scrap steel, drill a hole, and then a couple holes for to bolt it on there to hold that pulley, or to hold the crankshaft, to be able to loosen this. That's the first set of problems. The next set is getting the pulley off. So we'll try to get that bolt off. It is torqued extremely tight. So if this tool works, then we will see what it takes to get that pulley off the crank. Well, that came off easier than I thought. From what I read, those things, the pulleys are harder to get off than it is to get the bolt off, but bolt came off with a little bit of force and that pulley came right off. Probably helped having this bolted onto it. I just kind of yanked on it, bumped it with a hammer, and it pulled it right off. So now we can pull this little cover off here, pull the oil pump and everything out, and then we can pull pistons, rods, and crank. Alright guys, got this thing completely stripped. Crank, rods, everything is out, and believe it or not, 3 of the 4 pistons, the top ring is busted in half. Number 1 is still intact, but 2, 3, and 4, here's number 4, had busted top rings. So yeah, I guess these rings aren't very strong, or this just got miles on it and didn't like the boost. So either way, we are going to do rods and pistons just to make sure that everything's good. These pistons don't look terrible, but I'm going to replace them. But good news, all the bearings look really good. The crank journals look really good. So hopefully that'll just clean up with a polish, and the block looks pretty decent. Hopefully I can just have it honed and just do a standard size pistons. So if you guys got any suggestions on what pistons, I was gonna do probably ASV pistons. They're basically just a drop-in, but they're a little stronger. And then I've actually heard really good things about the max speeding rods, so I might give those a shot. Obviously I'm gonna bring them to the machine shop and have them checked out, but other than that, we're good. So I need to clean up the shop and get this stuff ready to go. Find a machine shop. I don't know how picky the the European diesels are. I've done a lot of Subarus and the Toyota motors, but never a European car. I know they're a little picky here and there, so either way, I'll find someone to do it, and we'll get this thing rebuilt. All right, guys, that wraps up this video. So let me know, like I said, if you got any suggestions on bearings, rings, pistons, if you have had any experience with the max speeding rods, let me know. I'm kind of leaning towards that. I just heard really good things about them, and they're cheap. They already come with ARP studs, so that is a plus. But yeah, let me know what you think. I obviously, if you can't tell, I've never been in to a bottom end of a TDI. I've done lots of other bottom end rebuilds, but a lot of Toyotas and Subarus, like I said, but never a TDI. And let me know if there's anything specific that needs to be done, or you know, all the little specific things that need to be done or looked out for when doing one of these bottom ends, because I've never dove in. I've done a lot of top ends, but never a bottom. And if you've been in these things, fill me in on how to correctly go about the piston protrusion. So I know those ASV pistons are a little bit shorter. So what's the process? I mean, do you bring everything to the machine shop and then come back home, assemble it, check your protrusion, and then if you need it decked or anything, bring it back? Or how do you kind of go about that? I need to do a little research and get up to par on that kind of stuff. But if you guys have done it, let me know in the comments. So let me know what you guys think. Hope you enjoyed the video. Give it a thumbs up, subscribe, and I'll get back to you when we start cleaning some parts up, dropping this stuff off, and hopefully get this thing back together pretty soon. So thanks for watching. We'll see you in the next one.